You're listening to the Fanalist Podcast. Follow on Twitter at TheFanalystPod.
So, Jayden, it took 7 games, but the Toronto Raptors have made their first ever Eastern Conference Finals in franchise history. What did you learn about our Raptors last night?
I learned that they finally showed that they can actually produce in a clutch situation. I know that Bismack Biyombo absolutely lit it up. He showed that he can be better than JV. He can produce down the stretch in the fourth quarter. He had 17 points, 16 rebounds. Like, honestly, when JV gets back, it's going to be scary for Cleveland. And all I'm saying is that Lowry and DeRozan, if they're not shooting the ball well, they better be dishing it down to Bismack and JV.
Now, are you concerned that it took 14 playoff games for this team to finally show us who they are?
A little bit, but I mean, I'm not too worried about them facing Cleveland right now. They led the season series 3-1. Honestly, I think they'll do fine against Cleveland.
This Raptors team all playoffs has had an insurmountable amount of trouble with playing back-to-back games and giving repeat performances, not just as a team, but even individually. Whenever DeRozan goes off, he disappears the next game. Same with Kyle Lowry. Against Cleveland, you're going to have to be able at some point to win back-to-back games to take the series. I don't see that happening at all. Is there a role player that you feel like for the Raptors he's finally arrived and he's just going to coast the team?
Like I said before, it's going to be Biyombo. It's got to be Biyombo. JV won't be ready until at least Game 3. Dwayne Casey just stated today that he'll be out for the first 2 games in Cleveland. So Biyombo has to do what he did last night, step up, take control, make big plays, the hustle plays, and get the crowd fired up.
How about you, Tyson? Anyone for the Raptors that you feel like is going to be either the guy to step up, or that if you were to speak to yourself, you'd say you need to lead this team, you need to step up?
Yeah, I agree with Jayden. It's definitely Bismack with JB.
You guys really think that Bismack Biyombo has enough in the tank to carry the Toronto Raptors?
I don't think he'll carry them. I never said that. I think that he's the guy, though, that needs to step up, and he needs to be on his game more than anyone else. He proved that against Miami, saying that he pretty much led them to the win. I mean, Kyle Lowry was playing unbelievable, but really, he was the man that everybody was looking at.
Sometimes it's not about who gets the most points or who gets the most rebounds, who gets the most assists. It's who gets the team fired up to win the game.
I completely agree with that. Bismack has been incredible in multiple forms, from scoring, from his defensive presence, from attacking the offensive boards as well, and just him being on the court, the way that he's carried himself and the way that he's carried this team, the way he's communicating with his teammates throughout the entire game, logging some serious minutes, thankfully, because once Bismack's out, I'm not really too convinced by any of our reserve players for the Raptors. But Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan, to win Game 7, they had to be on. Now, heading into this next series, can we really expect that they can average a combined 60 points per game? Because that's what they need. Like, for scoring for the Raptors, you need 60 points from those 2 key players.
I think everyone has to step up in this next series.
Because even Patterson's really struggled from 3 in this series. And he's been a guy that a lot of us really were kind of, hoping they'd get the ball to more. And he hasn't gotten it enough. He's kind of got to shoot through that kind of struggle.
So, Jayden, you say that everybody needs to step up to beat Cleveland, yet you think that they're not going to have that much difficulty against them. So do you actually believe that that all the players on Toronto can step up and have enough to beat Cleveland in this series?
I think they can beat Cleveland. In my prediction, I don't think they will beat Cleveland.
Okay, all right. So from what we've seen from Toronto is that they haven't been scoring a lot of points, and they've had difficulty getting up to 100. Cleveland, on the other hand, has been rolling through their opponents. They went through Atlanta like they were nothing, and they
are nothing.
All right, they're a defensive team though, a good defensive team, and yet they were able to steamroll through all the games. So, how do you feel like they're going to play against Toronto?
Well, I think that Toronto has a better idea of how to guard certain players like the LeBron, the Kevin Love, the Kyrie Irving, just because of watching what they did to Detroit and Atlanta. And let me tell you this, Detroit and Atlanta, no big deal.
You picked Detroit to win against Cleveland.
What? Yeah, because they won the season series. I didn't think they were going to be that bad.
Okay, well, I think that Cleveland is that much better than they were in the regular season.
They were, and let me tell you this. Usually in the regular season, the Cleveland, they weren't shooting as well from behind the arc than they did in the playoffs. They set 2 playoff records.
Golden State, and they're not even a 3-point team.
Well, I'm just saying this, that Cleveland has definitely stepped up their 3-point shooting game. I did not expect this out of them, for sure. Like, I know that LeBron has stepped up, J.R. Smith stepped up, and even Irving has hit a couple threes.
Now, certainly that's true. The Cleveland Cavaliers have stepped up all around in this postseason, and that's why they've been blanking. They blanked the Hawks and the Pistons, right? So, like, let's look down at matchups. When you have J.R. Smith shooting the way that he has been, I mean, like, with J.R. Smith, you're just kind of hoping he gets rusty after this kind of break, but I think he'll even shoot through that in the first half of Game 1. But, like, who covers J.R. Smith?
DeMar DeRozan.
Yeah? Who covers LeBron James?
I'm saying Carroll. He's really good defensively, and I think that he can stop LeBron from penetrating into the paint and still hold him, honestly, to the 3-point shot.
Who covers Irving? Lowry?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Who covers Love?
Bismack.
Patterson.
I say Bismack.
Okay, and who's the next? Wait.
Let me just stay on this for a second. I think since Love can hit the 3, and he's also good at driving to the lane, I think Patterson is on him. He's more mobile than Biyombo is. Don't get me wrong, Biyombo's a great defender, but he's more suited against a true center, like an Andre Drummond.
Yeah, that is true. Actually, you're right. Yeah,
that's why I'm thinking that Patterson will be on Kevin Love to start the series. If they are having troubles, maybe they will switch to Biyombo or like a James Johnson or something like that. I think that they're going to start Patterson on Love to see how he does throughout Game 1 and maybe even Game 2.
Now, before I get to my point, I'll admit this. I'm kind of hoping that Dwayne Casey knew they were going to make the conference final, and this is why he's been saving James Johnson, and that's to play some stellar D in this series. But I feel like as we went through every matchup between the Cavs and the Raptors, like player by player for the starting 5s, or at least the starting 4, the top 4, I feel like the Raptors lose each matchup. They have the weaker player in each of those matchups.
I wouldn't say for every single matchup, because I think that we have the advantage when we go to the bigs with Kevin Love and Tristan Thompson. Don't get me wrong, they're great players, but I honestly think that if Bismack Biyombo played like he did in this last series, him and maybe even throw in Louis Scola. I know that Louis Scola hasn't played because he was slumping in the first couple games. And plus, first at Indiana, he was slumping. When they played Miami went small ball. Toronto went small ball. That's why Louis Scola wasn't playing. So I think that we have the advantage on bigs, and when JV gets back, that'll even help us even more.
Now, do you feel like you're looking at the Game 7 Raptors that played the Miami Heat when you talk about them versus the Cavs? Because I'm remembering back to game, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 between them and the Pacers and seeing how all these guys played. And just, it's like, there's no doubt that DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry are capable of having these 30-point performances. There's no debate that they're capable of that. They've shown that, but they've shown it in the regular season. They have not been consistent. They have not been dominant in the postseason.
Oh,
so
absolutely.
Can we get that kind of production and consistency out of them in a series?
Well, they're going to have to be consistent.
I know we're asking a lot of them. Like, they're playing the Cleveland Cavaliers, and we're all obviously we respect the Cavaliers. They have a much stronger team in almost every way. They're going to score more points. They're going to I don't want to say they're going to play better defense, because I think the Raptors might actually have a slight edge in defense when they're playing at their potential. But where my doubts are really setting in here is thinking about how the Raptors have played in back-to-back games coming off a win. They've been following it up with a letdown. Now, the positive is whenever they have these huge letdowns, they come out the next game and win, but those have not been convincing wins.
And I don't think they'll be able to pull that off against a team like Cleveland.
Well, they have to be consistent. This is the playoffs. This is the finals. They have to be consistent. No more screwing around. No more losing games by 20 and then coming back and winning a game by 10. They have to be consistent right now. Right now is their time. And I think if they shut down Irving and Smith, if they hold them each to, say, 15 to 20 points per game, which is pretty good for either of them. Well, it's good for Irving. I think they won't have to worry about LeBron. If they can just shut down those two, then shutting down LeBron will just happen on its own.
I don't know. LeBron in the playoffs is a savage.
Yeah, I mean, what LeBron James did with Dellavedova last year against the Warriors
Well, he's scum.
was incredible. Well, whatever you care. Exactly.
I agree.
Say whatever you want about Dellavedova, but he was the right-hand man to LeBron James in the last NBA Finals. In NBA Finals, where I know I'm getting away from the Eastern Conference now, where Iguodala was the all-star of the series, and now he's a bench player with the Warriors. They're going to be phenomenal. So, I mean, I feel like this argument's almost... We'll see how this series goes. We'll see how the Cavs play. But I feel like for the Raptors, it's going to be really important to see how they come out in this series. I feel like Game 1 is their only chance at making a statement against the Cavs. Okay, because if the Cavs take Game 1 and then the Raptors come back with a good performance the next game, the Cavs know, let's go to Toronto, win the next game. Like, it's going to be an uphill climb the whole way through. Do you agree with me when I say that if the Raptors can take Game 1, that is going to be the first step to getting any momentum in this series?
Well, any momentum and any confidence from the fans especially, because we all know that the ACC is rocking when the Toronto Raptors are winning and doing well, and they're staying consistent. If there's even some slight doubt, then I think the Raptors play best when they're at home and they're with their home fans, because the Raptors fans are some of the best in the league. So I think that if the Raptors fans can stay consistent and confident and high energy at the ACC, and even from Jurassic Park watching the game from Toronto while the game's in Cleveland, I think that the Raptors have a small chance.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning into the Fanalist Podcast. I'm Tyson, and you can follow us at TheFanalystPod.
So let's look at series predictions here. Now, I'll go first. When I look at this series, now listen, let me preface this. I had Miami in 6 games because of the same thing. I didn't think the Raptors could be consistent enough to come out and win this series. So I've been shown up slightly where they were able to get it done. They didn't actually put together that many great back-to-back games, but they did enough to win what they needed to do against Miami with JV out. When I first saw JV go out, I thought there was no chance. I thought I was right that this would be over in 6. But now looking at this series, I'm still not convinced by these Raptors, and I'm going to be the doubter. I have the Cleveland Cavaliers. If I have to put my money on it, I have them in 4 games. I have them of a clean sweep of the Raptors, and I don't even think the Raps keep it within 7 points for one of these games. What about you guys?
I think you're absolutely right. I'm going to go the same way. I'm going to go with Cleveland. I just don't think that the Raptors have what it takes right now to beat Cleveland. They're too strong, and I just haven't seen enough consistency from them, so I'm going to go with Cleveland in 6. I think the Raptors will get at least 2 games out of them, and I think that they're going to win. The Raptors will win their home games.
I agree with Jayden. I think it'll be 6 games for Cleveland. I just have them winning at home, really. I can't see them winning in Cleveland because on the road they haven't been playing well. And Cleveland is a tough team. And I can't see Toronto squeaking out a 7-game series win.
Well, but I think that
if they're going to win, it's going to be 7 games, and I just can't see them winning in Cleveland in Game 7.
It depends on JV's health, I think. That he can make a big statement when he does come back. It just depends on, like you've said in many podcasts before, Dwayne Casey's in-game decisions, where he wants to start JV or if he wants to keep him on the bench and start Bismack Biyombo when JV is available to play and he's cleared by doctors.
Yeah, that's something that maybe, I'm a pretty hard guy on Dwayne Casey. In-game adjustments, I think he's shown repeatedly that he just cannot compete with the rest of the coaches in the league when it comes to those. But credit to Dwayne Casey, because through this entire second round where doubt was setting in for all fans. Now, there were multiple times where people's thoughts were going up and down with this Raptors team of whether they could compete and whether they'd even show up again for the rest of the playoffs. There were a lot of changing points, and whether it's just Dwayne Casey being a stubborn coach or whether it's what he truly believed, he put his foot down and told the media every time that he had faith in Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan and that they would get it done. So we'll see how the Raptors and the Cavs do in this series. I'm looking forward to it. I'll be watching Game 1 tomorrow. I'm sure you guys will be as well. And thank you, Fanalists, for tuning in for another episode of our podcast. If you'd like this podcast, then give us a like on Facebook, Twitter, even on SoundCloud, depending where you're listening. Leave us a comment and get in discussion with us. Let us know what you think. You can always tweet us at TheFanalystPod.
Thanks for tuning in to the Fanalist Podcast. I'm Jayden, and you can follow us at TheFanalystPod.